On RT, Al-Qaeda-linked rebels in Syria have abducted 120 Kurds in a village near the border with Turkey. The news has been reported by the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. The group said all the captives, including at least 6 women, have been taken to an unknown location. Al-Qaeda-linked groups have been terrorizing the Kurdish enclaves in Syria, with several unconfirmed reports putting the number of those killed in the hundreds. Let's now go live to Paul Lashmar. He's an investigative journalist at Brunel University in the UK. Paul, what do you make of these reports?
Well, this looks like the ISIL, as they're known, the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, which is an Al-Qaeda-linked group in the north of Syria. It looks like they're getting stronger and stronger at the moment, and there's great tension between them on the Kurds and also the Free Syrian Army rebels as well. So it seems to me that it's developing into a multi-sided battle. It's not just rebels versus the Syrian government any longer. We're getting more and more evidence that jihadist elements are getting stronger and picking fights with those around them.
And the Kurds themselves, they've been trying to create their own independent state, in effect, haven't they, out of the chaos arising from Syria, and indeed they have their own armies. So we could see perhaps retaliation now? We
could. The Kurds have been trying to create their own state, well, as for as long as I've been a journalist and for longer. So, and they have tried to take advantage of the situation, understandably from their point of view, to create a separatist state which covers several borders, including parts of Turkey. So they're not popular with the Turks either, but they're quite militarily well armed. So it will be interesting to see how the Kurds will react to this.
But nevertheless, Al-Qaeda-linked groups have reportedly been planning to announce this Islamic State there. And we also heard that there have been a string of reports of mass murders in Kurdish villages by the Al-Qaeda rebels. In many ways, there are people being victimized at the moment. But is their plight, in effect, being ignored by the international community?
Well, it's very difficult for the international community to get involved. But in fact, they have reacted because, as you saw very recently, the American government have pulled the plug on non-lethal aid to the Free Syrian Army because of the Al-Qaeda rebels have taken that equipment. They appear to be, in the course of battles between them and the Free Syrian Army, have been captured equipment supplied by the Americans, and therefore improving their military capability. So, and the Americans, as a result, pulled the plug. But that shows how intense it's getting there, and that the international community is very difficult. It's very difficult to do anything inside Syria. It's very hard to get in there to do anything, and it's hard to know what they're going to do next.
And this comes just over a week since an Islamist rebel faction kidnapped 13 Syrian and Lebanese nuns in the village of Malula, and they haven't yet been released. Can anything be done about them?
Well, clearly not. And the kidnapping also extends to journalists in this area. I mean, journalists just can't go into the Syrian area now, where it should be on the rebel side, because they are being kidnapped. And therefore, this is why the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights has become so important. It appears to be one of the few organizations that can get information out of the rebel areas, and we're completely dependent on them in some ways, because this report comes from them. So far, no one else has been able to confirm or deny it at this stage.
So, Paul, just finally, this is getting so complicated, isn't it, now? And it's dangerous. We've got the Free Syrian Army at odds with Islamic extremists, and, of course, the Free Syrian Army against the Assad regime. And now, of course, we got this with the Kurds and Al-Qaeda. Just finally, what do you make of the future of what's going to happen there in Syria?
Well, it's hard to think of it, of a greater mess. And of course, you've got the weather closed in with winter now, which we're seeing the impact on the real victims of this, which are the civilian population, who are having to leave the country, and they're setting up in, refugee camps where they're not properly provided for, and they're going to start dying. So it is an appalling mess.
Paul, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us live here on RT International. Paul Lashmar, investigative journalist at Brunel University in the UK. Thank you.